Caroline County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Board members present this evening is Mr. Jeff Black, representing the Western Caroline District, Mr. Calvin Taylor, representing the Port Royal District, Mr. Reginald Underwood, representing the Reedy Church District, Mr. Jeff Seeley, representing the Bowling Green District, Mr. Floyd Thomas, the Mattaponi District, and I'm Wayne Akers, and I represent the Madison District. I'm going to ask Mr. Floyd Thomas if he would lead us in invocation. I'm going to ask that you stand, please.
Let us pray. Dear Father God, we come before you today as you've asked. You've said where two or more are gathered in your name, there you should be also. We ask you to be with us today, to guide us, to help us make decisions for the good of the county, for the good of the Commonwealth and the nation. Dear Father God, we come before you today with bowed heads, acknowledging you as the supreme ruler of the universe. We've closed our eyes to shield out all that is inconsistent with you, and Lord, we've opened up our hearts. We ask that you give us again your divine wisdom, your strength and guidance. These and all things we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You did it. Maybe see. Amendments to the agenda? No? Okay. Open board comments. Mr. Black.
Yeah, I've got a few, Mr. Akers. First of all, I would like to congratulate all of the graduates of the Caroline High School for the graduation that they had a couple weeks ago. It was a great graduation ceremony up in Fredericksburg, so that was really nice. So thank you for the invitation. Also, I had sent an email to several of the board about a possible change of the board meeting on the 24th to the 31st. I don't know if that's a possibility. The next meeting to the 31st, 1 week. And then also a possibility of a change of the December 11th meeting to either the 4th or the 18th. If that's possible. Also, my Board of Zoning Appeals appointee is one of the plant managers at the North Anna Power Plant, and he's willing to give a tour. I sent that email as well for those supervisors who are interested in taking a tour of the plant. That would be on July the 6th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Because of security purposes, we would need some information from supervisors and some staff. Just a couple more. I'd like to thank all of those who have continued to work to help fight Aqua Virginia and their rate increase. The hearing is in Richmond on Tuesday. So I want to thank all the county employees and people who have helped us in this fight. And finally, and probably the most important one for me, is I would like the board to possibly reconsider the $350,000 cuts to the schools. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir. Mr. Akers, I do. First of all, it's good to see so many people present for the meeting. I firmly believe that the more people who come out, you can certainly hear what's going on and get real information as opposed to maybe something that you heard. But I would like to speak just briefly to the school board's budget and the proposed cut that the board made. And I'm doing that because there was a letter from Dr. Kellogg talking about explaining the board cut and the decision and so forth. And I'm certainly not going through each of the details because letters have been written and hopefully you've had a chance to see some of them. But I can tell you for myself, we are doing the very best that we can to fund not just the schools, but every entity in the county that we have. We've had some circumstances that cause us to just not be able to fund to the level that we would like. There was a change in the composite index, and I don't know if you're familiar with the composite index or not, but the composite index is based on a locality's ability to pay. When the composite index is lowered, that means that the county has less funding. That means that the revenues are down. And when revenues are down, that means just what it says. It's less money to provide services, not just for schools, but for law enforcement, fire and rescue, and all the entities that we serve. So our revenues are down. But beyond that, under the old composite index, if the composite index had not changed, the funds that the school received are still $396,000 more than level funding. With the change, the schools were given an additional $746,000 based on the fact that the county's revenues are down and the ability to pay is not there. In addition to that, the board specifically asks that 1.7 of the funding that was allocated be used to address teacher raises. Now, we have no control over what's done with the funds once they are allocated, but we certainly asked that that would be strongly considered. Whether it will be or not, I don't know. But I say that to say, based on what circumstances we are dealing with, we've done the very best that we can do. And we have provided funding, and we have asked that funding, or a portion of that funding that we provided, be used to address teacher raises. And that's just really all that we can do. Finally, I would like to switch gears and talk a little more about a situation that didn't involve the schools, but involved me at the last meeting. I got to the meeting a few minutes late, through no fault of my own. It's just unfortunate I couldn't get here on time for some uncontrollable situations. And so when I came in, I parked in front of the fire hydrant. Bad thing to do. To be honest, I parked so fast and trying to get in quickly, I never even noticed that the fire hydrant was there. And about 15 minutes later, I was approached, and they said, "You're blocking the fire hydrant." So immediately, I went out and I moved my car, which is what I should have done. I should have paid more attention. But you know, when you're an elected official, you have a difficult time because you have to be perfect in everything that you do. And sometimes citizens are not always very nice, and that's okay because that goes with the territory. But I don't expect that from the media. I guess what I'm saying is I was a 33-year school official, educator, administrator, 17 years on the Board of Supervisors, and have always worked hard to try to do what I can to give back. Have served on just about every committee that you can serve on in this county and donate my time right now. But all they could find to print about me was that I parked in the front of a fire hydrant. Makes you wonder about the quality of the news that they print. Also makes you wonder maybe why their circulation is no more than what it is. Thank you.
Mr. Underwood?
Well, that certainly was a mouthful. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I want to thank Ms. Hatcher, Mr. Whitman, Mr. Pardon, and Mr. Culley for meeting last night regarding the Quinn River project of homes in the Reedy Church District. Certainly, it was a good meeting. I hope we can continue to dialogue. I guess my only comment around many things that are going on at this point is that if it's perfection and the ability to see in the future is what you're looking for, then I'm not the person who should be sitting here. I'm going to be taking and using all this information that I have to make the best decision. For me, whether you agree or disagree is important, but it's not going to be the reason that I make a decision. I'm going to make a decision because I believe it's the best decision to make. So we can always disagree. I was kind of taken aback by the article. I know Mr. Taylor and worked with him, and I don't think he's arrogant. I think he's very stubborn sometimes. No, I think he sticks to his point. And I think when you have a point and you agree, I think it's your duty to try to persuade the other person to your side of the fence. And I think Mr. Taylor does that well. So, again, I would just hope that we would not look for perfection, but look for people willing to do hard work and make a mistake, say it's a mistake, and move on. Thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
On a different note, I want to say that the Relay for Life was last Saturday. It was absolutely amazing, the number of participants, the teams that were there. They came within $7,000 of their goal, and in this economic times, I think that's a phenomenal amount of money to be raised, and I just want to congratulate all those that actually put the Relay for Life together and all the participants that came out and everybody that supported it. It was a great showing for Caroline County. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman, and apparently I've been saving them up for a while, so I've got quite a few, if you'll forgive me. But first of all, I wanted to say thank you to the Wounded Warrior golf participants, Mr. Curlings in particular, and Sergeant Jimmy Brinkley, who is the Wounded Warrior contact. As you know, I mentioned last month that they would be participating in a golf tournament from Caroline's Promise at Mattaponi Springs. It was my pleasure to have them there and see them, and I thank Mr. Black for assisting with the contribution there. They did a great job. I understand they had a good time. Somehow they even managed to finish in third place, so that was a good thing for all of them. So I think that was a great thing. The second one is I have got some emails recently, I don't know why me, but they're regarding sewer in Lake Caroline and Lake Landor. So there appears to be a movement out there to see if the county can expand sewer into Lake Caroline and or Lake Landor. So I couldn't scan. I see Mr. Schiebel, so if you could just take note of that for us, please, and we'll factor that into our planning for sewer and water. Not saying that's something we'll do or not, but it appears that there's starting to be some interest. The other thing is I've talked to Mrs. Carter, and I think she told me that I couldn't do it, but I've never been one to accept no for an answer. But I somehow would like to be able to change our property tax assessment rate from the retail value to the NADA book value or the loan value. And I know it's probably a lot of work and effort, but I think I'm probably not the only one that has heard that comment from folks lately. Personally, I feel the same way, but if we can do that, I don't know if we can do that before December or if we have to do that for next year. Who says it has to be?
The state code, your tax for the year beginning January 1st, and so the first half was just the first half bill, and then you've had the second half bill. We couldn't change the assessment ratio.
I could get a General Assembly waiver?
They don't meet again until next year.
Trust me, I'm not finished.
I understand.
Okay.
We certainly have had some discussions to work on that very issue, but I think it'll be next year.
That's what Mrs. Carter said, and I respect her and respect her opinion. But I would still like to try to make it happen before December. So, you know, I'll work on it from that perspective. You keep telling me no, and I learned early if somebody tells you no, you haven't asked the right person. So I'm going to keep asking until somebody tells me yes, or we actually have to make that change in January. But that is something I'd like to do. The other thing is I've gotten a few property maintenance grass cutting issues lately. I'm probably not the only one on those because one of the ones I got was in Mr. Seeley's district. She stopped me at a funeral and said the grass was bad, so and I forwarded that list to Mr. Fincham, so I think he's going to address that later. The other one that I hadn't intended to mention until Mr. Taylor brought it up is I'm going to clarify my motion again regarding the schools. I made the motion that we would give $1.7 million, which is what the superintendent told us he needed, to give raises to the teachers and support personnel. So we are going to give the money for raises for the school, teachers, and support personnel. And again, I will find a way to make sure that happens in spite of whatever obstacles are placed in front of us. But that's what I intend to do. And last but not least, it's with great sadness that that's why I wasn't at the relay. I was attending a funeral for Mrs. Maggie James. And those of you who know or don't know, Mrs. James was the Commonwealth's oldest living citizen. She was 112 years old, which ironically is exactly twice my age. But I knew Mrs. James when I was a little kid, and she was the sweetest little old lady then as she was, just a few months ago. But that was something I think we needed to recognize. I appreciate Mrs. Hall and Mr. Parton helping me get a letter out to the family expressing our condolences on behalf of the county, and I think that's it. So, thank you very much. Those are mine.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
I'm done for today.
All right. Thank you, board members, for the comments. The only thing that I'm going to add is the fact that Mr. Sealer is absolutely correct about the Relay for Life, and I just want to say thank you to the people that have volunteered their time. They certainly, my wife and I are both cancer survivors, and we participated and walked in the Relay for Life, and afterwards they had a really nice event for the survivors, and I think you'd be surprised at the number of survivors in Caroline County that participated in this event. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that we are survivors, and all the people that were there were able to be there and to tell their story as to how they were able to deal with the cancer and survive the cancers that they have. So again, I want to say thank you to all of the organizers of that great event. Next item on the agenda this evening is the presentations and reports, and there are several here that we're extremely happy to provide and to give. And the first one is going to be recognition of Mrs. Irene Gray, which is an employee of the Commissioner of Revenue's office. And Ms. Gray, if you would come forward, and we would take pictures. Mr. Gray, if you want to come and have a picture with your wife, and Sharon, we'll have you come up and after the presentations, and we'll take some pictures.
You want to do a staff picture too?
We'll do that as well. Ms. Gray, I want to say on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we do appreciate your many, many years of, well, I shouldn't say many, many years, but it's been some years. Okay. We want to say thank you for the years of service that you provided to Caroline County and its citizens. They've been great for the county, and I trust they've been great for you as well. We do want to present you with this resolution this evening, and it's a resolution of appreciation for the public service of Mrs. Irene Gray. Whereas Mrs. Irene Gray will retire from the Commissioner of the Revenue's office on June 29, 2012, and whereas, all told, Mrs. Gray's career with Caroline County spans 36 years. I didn't realize it was that many. Beginning as a part-time employee in the county administrator's and building official's office in 1976, before moving to full-time status in the treasurer's office and commissioner of the revenue's office. And whereas, while working in the treasurer's office, she became a deputy treasurer in charge of customer service in 1992. And whereas, after joining the commissioner of the revenue's office in 2005, she coordinated the elderly tax relief and land use program and worked hard to achieve master deputy status. And whereas Mrs. Gray has distinguished herself doing her career as a loyal and valued employee of her native county, and will be greatly missed by her co-workers and citizens. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors expresses its appreciation to Mrs. Irene Gray for her decades of service to the citizens of Caroline County and extends its best wishes for a happy and healthy retirement. Signed the 12th day of June, C.M. Cully, County Administrator or Clerk of the Board, and Wayne Akers, Chairman. Great. Great. Come on up.
Bring the rest of the staff.
Come on up.
Sharon?
Sharon, you want to bring your group up and take a picture with, yeah, why not?
Okay. Now that,
Mark, are they in the corner?
yes, I'll get,
Ladies, you might want to go in the
okay,
corner.
ladies, gentlemen, or one gentleman. Okay, can I get you to move in the corner right over in there? Okay. Okay, can you move it over a little bit further? Move it over a little bit further. That's good, right there to the edge. Some in the front, some in the back. Okay. Of course, you're right in front, right there. Okay. Okay, ma'am, you want to step forward? Step forward, step forward. Okay, lady in red can't hide now. Okay. That's good. That's good. Ma'am, ma'am, can you step back just an inch? Just back, okay. Okay. All right. The two on my left, just an inch to my left. Good. Okay, that looks good. All right.
Smile. Smile.
Okay, one more.
Somebody in the front.
Yes, I'll let you go. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gray, I'm sure.
Irene's been here longer.
They want to, thank you.
I'll go to her. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Did you say longer than Wayne? Yes. Right, right. Yeah, that's what I said. You're not old enough to be here that long.
Thanks again. Let me just do it.
Congratulations, man. Take care. All right, we have the GED graduates and the colonel.
So we can stand over in the corner.
The next item on the agenda this evening is the recognition of the 2012 GED graduates, and we are so happy to have a number of them in the audience tonight, and I would only ask that if you would like, that you could stand and be recognized for your GED accomplishments. That being said, I want to say, Ms. Great job. Mrs. Blatton, if you would, as one of the leaders and instructors of this group, we
Thank you.
turn it over to you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors, I want to speak on behalf of Caroline Literacy Council and the GED program, which are intermarried. Thank you so much for your support in the past, and we certainly hope that you would continue to support us. We are a very unique program in our planning district. In our planning district 16, there are King George, Stafford, Spotsylvania, the city of Fredericksburg, and Caroline. I didn't know I was going to speak until about 30 or 40 minutes ago, so I don't have all the statistics with me, but I do have one. And I was privileged to go to a meeting this past year, several meetings, and planning meetings for future years in GED program, where they compared all the different localities. And Caroline was, most of the positive ones, Caroline was way on top of the others, which speaks very well for Caroline and the work that we are doing here, and you are helping us to do. The only statistic that I have trouble saying that word, that I have here with me shows the percentage of students with educational gains. And for the 2010-2011 year, Caroline had 68.5%. The next highest was our next most rural county of King George, and they had 52% gain. So Caroline is leading the way. And I would like all of you supervisors at your next constituent meetings to tell your constituents about our program. We volunteer in the summertime to tutor students who need GED, didn't graduate from high school, didn't get to attend this wonderful graduation that was held last Friday night. And we want them to come to our program. We do volunteer in the summertime to tutor here at the library 1 day a week on Tuesdays, Tuesday morning and Tuesday evening. And in 2014, there are many, many people in Caroline County who have already had part of the GED test. There are 5 parts that you have to pass. And many of them have already passed part of it. If they don't complete that by 2014, a new test is going into effect. Much more difficult, twice as many essays to write on that one as they have now. Besides it will cost, it costs like $40-something or $50 now. It will cost $140. It will be entirely on computer. And many of our residents and citizens don't even know how to operate a computer. Encourage your constituents to get into this program and get their GEDs before 2014. And speaking, I haven't asked the other teachers, if any of you would like for us to come to your meetings, get in touch with us. We'll come to your meetings and try to explain this to your constituents. But again, I want to say thank you for having us, for giving us the privilege of coming to the Board of Supervisors and being recognized. Thank you.
Ms. Bladden, I want to say, certainly with I do want to say to you that certainly we appreciate all that you do and others that work with, not only us, but many other groups in the county. And if you would allow me to go through some individuals here. I'm not sure whether Ms. Belechik is here or not, but certainly Ms. Belechik, we appreciate that. Of course, Ms. Bland, you may have some problems with statistics, but I can tell you when it comes to government, she has no problems with any of the words that deal with the government. Because
I'm slipping. I won't have one student on the board anymore. The 2 constituents, the 2 fellow co-workers over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Marcia Hayes, Murray Haley, Alice Allen, Dwight Frazier, Betty Mathis, and son of Vincini. And also special recognition to 2 individuals that I think is very instrumental in your program, Vanessa Ware and Evelyn Rogers. We want to say thank you to all of you for what you do in this endeavor. And there are some certificates, almost I got fouled up myself, certificates that Mrs. Hall is going to share with you, and I believe you're going to present them later. And again, I say to all graduates of the GED program, congratulations, best of luck to you, and Godspeed. We really, truly wish you all the best in the world. Thanks. All right, thank you. The last presentation that we have to make this evening is one that is really given with mixed feelings. We're going to, I believe that there's going to be a change of command over at the Hill come next week. And the guy that's been there for a number of years now has certainly been a friend to the county. He has certainly worked with the county and county staff and the board in all the endeavors that we undertake in dealing with AP Hill. And I want to present a resolution declaring June the 14th, 2012 as United States Army Day in Caroline County, Virginia. And the resolution goes, whereas the United States Army traces its history to 10 companies of riflemen that answered the call for a Continental Army and enlisted on June 14, 1775, and whereas Fort A.P. Hill, established June 11, 1941, served as a staging area during World War II for European-bound units to include Major General George Patton's Task Force A and 7 Corps headquarters during the Korean War, the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, and as a mobilization station for units during the Vietnam conflict, Desert Storm, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraq Freedom, and other combat operations. And whereas, throughout its history, members of the United States Army have served our country at home and abroad in defense of our nation and our allies around the world, and whereas today, over 700,000 soldiers continue the rich traditions of the United States Army by serving in over 100 countries throughout the world, and whereas about 100,000 of the nation's warriors hone their combat edge each year at Fort A.P. Hill, a national military facility that continues to provide realistic joint and combined arms training for America's defense forces, provides ongoing training support for joint and interagency units engaged in homeland defense and overseas contingency operations, and local, state, and federal first responders, firefighters, and law enforcement. And whereas Fort A.P. Hill consistently serves as the last stop for many of our nation's warriors before deploying into harm's way, and the installation is deeply grateful to the support it receives from Caroline County, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the United States of America. Whereas 2012 marks the 237th birthday of the United States Army. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims June 14, 2012, to be United States Army Day in Caroline County, Virginia, and encourages all of our citizens to recognize the achievements of current and former members of the United States Army. Adopted this 12th day of June, 2012, signed by the clerk of the board, Charles Culley, and Wayne Akers, chairman. Okay, that was the fun things. Report on Wounded Warrior Project Bass Fishing Day. Mr. Ron Curlings.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, I want to thank you for this opportunity to let me come before you again. Tonight I wear many hats. I wear the hat of the American Legion, which I'll take off shortly. I'm wearing a hat that doesn't exist as the Wounded Warrior representative for Caroline County, and I'm hoping to wear the hat of the Board of Supervisors of Caroline County as I make this proposal to you. We had our first bass fishing program in Caroline County on the 28th of April, and it was a huge success. The feedback, starting with the Wounded Warriors, was, let's do it again. from the buddies who worked with the Wounded Warriors on a one-on-one basis. They said, let's stop. Why stop? Let's just keep right on fishing today. From the owners of the property who said, we had a ball. Use the property anytime you want it. And let's do this again next year. To your representative who was there, and luckily we didn't have to take any fish hooks out of anything other than fishes, though we did catch 2 trees that day. She said she had a ball with the people that were there. The volunteers who fed the Wounded Warriors, they're already coming back next year. So I'm here now to ask if the Caroline County will get involved with this, but before you say yes, let me tell you what's going to happen. I gave a hint out as being the master of ceremony a couple weeks ago at the Memorial Day program where we had a Wounded Warrior as our guest speaker, and I asked the members that from the county who was there, have you heard about this program? And half of them raised their hands. The other half said no. Well, if you, as a board, agree to the following, this is what it's going to require. No money from the board. Okay? So we're not going to worry about giving me some money. I'm going to get the money by asking the hearts of the people of Caroline County if they want to contribute to the Wounded Warrior program. Now, the Wounded Warrior program in Virginia is a big program. But I've worked with the representative from Virginia and from our region, which is the Fredericksburg region, and they have agreed if the money is submitted to American Legion Post 221 with the Wounded Warrior on the check, that money will be turned over to the Wounded Warriors, and that money will stay in the Fredericksburg region, which means that people basically in Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, King George, Caroline, Henrico, and Hanover counties would be the ones that would be the recipients of what we raise. Now, most of these counties already have a Wounded Warrior program. So, last time I will tell you this as a member of the American Legion. I'm moving back into the seat of the commander of Caroline County, Post 221. I'm also already in the seat of the 12th District of this American Legion program with the idea that we will build a coordination of the Wounded Warrior programs so that we are not stepping on each other and having the same programs at the same time, and thus the Wounded Warriors have to choose, rather than being able to say, well, on May we're going here, April we're going here, and so it becomes something where they can actually have a full summer of enjoyment, of taking advantages of the programs that we can provide for these men and women who have given so much for our country. That being said, if you agree to allow me to continue the program in Caroline County, the program is going to grow. We have already lined up and started working to get corporate sponsors. We hope to have NBC actually bring a film crew down to take pictures and do the human interest story for those Wounded Warriors that want to share their story. Not all of them want to. Some are willing to. In return, you have to understand that we will use the name of Caroline County as the entity that will be leading this, and thus you are going to have to charge me and trust me that I will serve Caroline County as well as I have served the American Legion in representing the best interests of this program, and that with that I will do the best I humanly can to make this not only something that is wonderful for the veterans who are living in this county, because they would have first opportunities to participate. And this last program, we did have 3 from Caroline County participating. One of them was a World War II vet. All right? So the Wounded Warrior program has been expanded out. We have learned that what these veterans have brought home, they've been bringing home for a long time. and it's now time to step up and help them come back into our community as full-fledged members of the community. So tonight, I come to you asking, you gave me a resolution that lasted for one day, the 28th of April, 2012. Don't have to do another resolution. Just tell me I have your backing to represent Caroline County as we roll this program out. And next year we're looking for 25 participants, and there is also possibilities that we could actually start having family programs also up on the farm. And the owners of the Mount Olympus Farm are just sweethearts on what they want to do with these veterans. So I come to you. The question has been proposed to you. I ask you, do you back me and support me and trust me to roll this thing out in the best interests of Caroline County and the Wounded Warriors of Virginia?
Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate to make a motion at this time?
I think that that would be in order.
Okay, we'll make a motion to comply with Mr. Curling's wishes. And I also forgot to mention that Sergeant Brinkley, the Wounded Warrior contact for our region, asked to put Wounded Warrior information or a link on our website. And I thought it would be okay. I didn't know if we'd followed up on that.
Well,
has it happened?
Sir, I was going to ask that as soon as you gave me the permission, because I've already set up a site where I wanted to connect to a address of Wounded Warriors at AOL.com, which will take it from your computer onto my computer so I can talk to the people that have an interest.
So my motion will be to allow Mr. Curlings as part of the VFW.
Excuse me, American Legion.
American Legion. Do I do that all the time?
Most of the time.
Most of the time, thank you. Okay, as part of the American Legion, to use the name of Caroline County in conjunction with the Wounded Warrior Program, and also allow him to work with county staff to put a link to the Wounded Warrior Program, because it is a nonprofit, on the county website. So that would be the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Thomas, seconded by Mr. Black. Is there discussion on the motion? All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Mr. Curlings?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've got to go do some work now.
All right. Have a good one.
For the VFW, right? No, I get VFW and American Legion wrong.
The next item on the agenda is a report and update from Dr. David Sam from Germanna Community College President. And Dr. Sam, it's good to have you with us this evening.
Thank you.
We needed glasses.
I wonder if you can't see without it.
Well, define can. Fuzzy and out of focus.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for giving me a few minutes. Looks like you have a very long agenda, so I'll try to move quickly. Feel free to stop me at any time if you have a question. I do want to mention a couple of things. Germanna is your community college, and we try to partner in many ways with Caroline to help the Caroline citizens as much as possible with their educational needs. You mentioned, or Dwight Frazier's name was mentioned with GED. He is a Germanna employee. I don't know if you know, but Germanna does the testing for the planning district for the GED testing on our site. And we're happy to continue that partnership. But I'd also like to note that we, through our Veterans Affairs Office and our Veterans Student Association, partner with Wounded Warriors. We're proud to continue to do that. And if there are things that we can do, including maybe referring some of them to the bass fishing tournament, we would be happy to do that to help them in ways beyond their education. Thank you. All right. That's almost legible, isn't it? The general trend of the college for a number of years has been dramatic growth. Caroline's enrollment has been pretty steady, not growing dramatically. And the period from fall of, let's say, 2006 until